Okay, welcome this morning at this small press briefing. I'm very glad that Linda Feldmann made it to Vienna. She is Washington Bureau Chief of the Christian Science Monitor since quite some time. I mean, she's a little bit an institution in the Washington press area. She's an influential member of the White House Correspondents Association, has her own show and will explain us a little bit how life is in the Trump area for correspondents in Washington. But let me first ask you about this assassination yesterday of Charlie Kirk. I mean, there have been a lot of assassinations, unfortunately. Why does this one seem to be so important?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you all for coming. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is especially important in this very turbulent and violent era in the United States because he was so close to Donald Trump. As you know, Donald Trump himself was almost assassinated a little over a year ago, and all I can say is thank goodness that shooter missed, because then Donald Trump would have been martyred and would have in some ways ramped up all the tension and turmoil that we're seeing in the United States. The killing of Charlie Kirk has eliminated one of the most important young MAGA right-wing activists in the country. I first interviewed Charlie Kirk 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, at a meeting of CPAC, which is an important conservative annual gathering in Washington. So this was before Donald Trump had been elected, and Charlie Kirk was at the time only 22 years old and had started his organization, Turning Point USA, 4 years earlier. He didn't go to university. He dropped out and immediately went into political activism at the age of 18. And so even though Charlie Kirk's death at age 31, he was still a very young man, but he started, when he became active in politics, he was extraordinarily young and a very gifted communicator, very open to talking to people, answering questions, open to the media. I mean, I was listening last night to a recording of that interview from 2016, and was struck by how self-possessed he was. He was almost like another son to Donald Trump. And if you've seen the reaction of President Trump and his address to the nation last night, you can see about the death of Charlie Kirk. You can see how emotional he is, how upset. I think the impact could be profound. It will make the Trump MAGA movement, I think, even more cohesive and more determined to do what they want to do.
Well, Charlie Kirk, well, many of us checked him out this night because in Europe, this was not a household name. Yeah. I mean, he was defending some very extreme ideas, like women belong to the kitchen and should stay at home, and equal rights for black means racism against whites. Mm-hmm. So really extreme positions. Are the USA with this assassination one step closer to a situation of civil war, civil unrest, civil war?
I think at our session yesterday, we talked about the danger of making predictions. I don't want to predict civil war, but I do think the fact that Charlie Kirk was killed does take us to a next level of potential violence. I mean, we are still in the early moments of this tragedy. They have not caught the killer. We don't know who killed him and why. Apparently he killed him with just one shot, which suggests somebody who's a professional, shooter, a professional hitman. But so far, we've had protests in Washington, but nothing to the point, I think, that gets us close to civil war. I mean, I live in Washington, D.C. I live 2 miles from the White House. As you may have seen, the president has invited National Guard into Washington to put down crime and to create more order in the city. And honestly, the city wasn't that bad, but this is Trump exerting his influence in ways that he can. Washington is a federal city. It's not like other cities in the United States. The federal government has more control over the city than other cities. So I'll see when I get back, are there people coming to Washington to protest this, to sort of face off against the left opposition to Trump? I don't know. I mean, we'll see when Trump travels, will there be a greater sense of tension and unrest? I think it's anybody's guess. I think we'll see a lot on social media. I mean, I suppose the good news in a way is that people have many more avenues for expression. They don't have to go out in person. They can put statements out on social media and get people, get their message out, and they don't have to come in person.
Linda, live as a reporter in Washington under Trump, how profound has it changed?
It has changed dramatically. In fact, when Donald Trump was elected the first time, I thought, wow, this will be interesting. Donald Trump had never held any political office before. He had never served in government. He was kind of learning his way around. He had advisors who often pushed back on him. And reined him in and, excuse me, sir, but you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. That's against the law, whatever. I wasn't surprised when he lost in 2020, and I agree that he lost. I don't buy into these arguments that the election was stolen in 2020. When he won again in 2024, again, it was not a surprise, but I did not expect how different this presidency would be, including the way that he treats the press. So my take now is that he spent his first term figuring out how much power he could have in the presidency. It's sort of finding the cracks in the system and the ways in which government often happens through norms and customs and not through actual laws and through the Constitution. And he's pushing constitutional boundaries all the time, and there's a lot of court cases right now challenging him in various ways. In a word, the second term of Trump is exhausting as a reporter. I'm glued to my phone. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and can't resist. I look at my phone and I see that he's put out a message on his social media feed. Suddenly he's changed. He's done another turn on tariffs. And said, no, never mind. Instead of 15%, it's going to be 100% or whatever. And he'll give a deadline, and then we know that you can't count on his deadlines. He's just constantly keeping everybody off balance, including the press. As Raimund said, I'm active in the White House Correspondents Association. President Trump has, pretty early in his second term, his White House announced that they will determine who in the press corps is allowed to be in the pool. So our system for covering the president, because there are over 1,000 reporters in the White House press corps, and they can't all be with President Trump at all of his public activities. So we have a pool of reporters that travels with him and is with him in Washington for all his public events. So I was the one who was organizing the pools. We had a rotation of different outlets every day. Now the White House does that. So we in the press corps had to decide, all right, are we going to play along with this? Are we going to walk out? How is this going to work? And we made a strategic decision to actually work with this White House to kind of play nice a little bit, because in the end, we don't have a lot of leverage. If we had just all walked out and said, okay, our way or the highway, then he would have said, great, I'm happy to fill the briefing room with MAGA. Although I'll contradict myself a little bit and say that in a way he wants legacy mainstream media in the mix with him. So what we have now in the briefing room is a combination of the old style news outlets, independent, like the Christian Science Monitor, and the new so-called MAGA media, which are very much in his hip pocket, are there to support him and ask very easy questions. So, so the public doesn't understand really what's happening. I've had people ask me, why are you asking the president such easy questions in the when he comes to the briefing room, or if he's someplace else and reporters stand up and ask questions? And I say, well, that was Lindell TV, which is run by the businessman Mike Lindell, who's completely in part of the MAGA movement. So I think it can be confusing to the public to see what's happening with the press. But in the end, I think Trump likes having independent media near him so he can fight with us. Donald Trump loves the fight, loves to push back, loves to beat up on the press. And, you know, sometimes we get some real answers out of him, but it's, you know.
Well, I mean, let us a little bit into a daily life of a correspondent in Washington. Well, it's quite some time I'd been correspondent in Washington. It was in the morning you checked out, there was a briefing at the White House, a briefing at the Pentagon, at the State Department, and something was going on the Capitol Hill, then decided what might be interesting for the European public. You could go there or wait until the agencies reported what's happening. I mean, now with 20,000 social media platforms, how does it work? I mean, how do you orient yourself? And to do these press briefings in the White House, they were used to be pretty essential, and regularly every day. You knew, I think it was 11 or 11:30, you knew the spokesperson of the president will be at the podium, and you can ask questions. Is there an element of stability left, or is it all chaos?
So it's not at all chaos. There is a completely new order. The president's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, is very young. She's 27 years old. But she's very predictable in a way. She only briefs about once a week. But in a way, that's okay, because her answers are completely predictable. She's going to tell us what Trump wants to hear, wants her to tell us. And furthermore, Donald Trump himself is very accessible to the media, unlike Joe Biden, who almost never had press conferences and would interact with the media, say with the pool, or as he's about to get on Air Force One. He would do that just for a very, literally 1 minute. With Donald Trump, he can stand there for 45 minutes, an hour, until all the questions have been asked. And so, in a way, it's a great time to be covering the White House, to have the president himself so available and so amenable to press questions. He often invites the press into the Oval Office when he's having a meeting with a world leader, say with Zelensky or with Friedrich Merz, or I'm sure you've seen some of the footage from those interactions. And a lot of it is televised. So as a reporter, you don't have to be there. We can't. They can't have the entire press corps squeezed into the Oval Office, which isn't a very big room. You can watch the live stream of what he's saying and get what you need. And then when it's your turn to be in the pool, then you do get to be in the room with him and try to get his attention and ask your question.
But the president also seems to be doing something that other presidents have not done. He insults reporters in the press briefing, personally with the name or the organization they are for. I mean, how do you cope with it? Had you ever been insulted by the president?
He hasn't insulted me. But it's just part of his shtick. He is a performer, I think, above all else. He got into politics and was already famous as a reality TV performer. So even though his money, as such as it is, came from his real estate ventures, he's really famous because of his TV show, The Apprentice. So it's more like he played a businessman on TV rather than, yes, he's had his real estate business in New York and in other cities and around the world, but he's really, all about being a TV presence. He's obsessed with how people look. He'll meet some young guy who he thinks is good looking, and if they ask him a question, hey, you're a good looking guy, you can see he's sort of casting for his next TV show. He insults so many people. It's part of his act. So, for example, Maggie Haberman at the New York Times has Donald Trump's cell phone. That's another thing, his number, and can call him up. Members of Congress have his number. There was a moment in the Oval Office when he was, he interrupted to take a call from somebody, so I think a member of Congress. So if you're insulted by Donald Trump, as Maggie Haberman has been, he'll call her Maggot Haberman on his social media platform. You can't let it get to you. You just have to let it roll over you. It's part of who he is.
Well, it seems to be a different world from,
yes,
because it used to be very polite. I mean, the political life in Washington D.C. seemed to me much politer than in Berlin, Paris, or Rome, even. Yeah, much.
But your leaders weren't insulting. Were they insulting reporters?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. Anything that we missed that you thought would be interesting for colleagues in watching this in Austria?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions, points where you?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Sorry. How do you see this threat, Trump's threat to revoke ABC, NBC's licenses?
So I think this is part of his toolkit for using his power, which is to threaten people with some kind of sanctions, whether it's threatening the universities or the major law firms and the media, as you point out, threatening their licenses. You have to take that seriously. Sometimes he's bluffing, and sometimes he is going to pursue that angle. So Donald Trump is all about understanding the leverage that he has, the power that he has as president and as one with a theory of the executive branch that makes the president especially powerful. I think if he really does try to pull the licenses of major broadcast outlets, you will see a massive court case, which could go all the way to the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, I mean, the court system can take a while to work, and so in the meantime, everything is kind of in turmoil. Some of the major broadcast outlets have made gigantic payouts to Trump. He has claimed that he was defamed and treated unfairly, and has asked for, I think he sued one of the networks for several $1 billion, which is absurd. Pardon? Well, there's CBS and ABC have both, he's gone after both of those outlets and has gotten large sums of money. So he'll sue for several $1 billion, billion with a B, and then settle for several $100 million, which, as a member of the press corps, is completely infuriating that they're willing to settle and give him a lot of money. So in the case of CBS, which was just taken over by Paramount, I believe, I hope I've got this right, that the owner just wanted it off her plate. She didn't want to have to go through all the legal back and forth, and so she just gave him a bunch of money, which is maddening because it rewards him for bad behavior, I think.
Any other points? Yes, Here you go.
Yes, hello, my name is Stefan Bospanik from the Austrian Press Agency. I would have two questions. One question is, from the outside, we see the United States now in a fight for democracy, and do you also feel, as member of the press corps in the White House, that you are defending the American democracy against those evil forces? And the second question would be, what is the significance of this Epstein affair? Do you think that this could really lead to a change of power if there would be more evidence pointing to that Donald Trump made some had some role in all this? So do you think then that the MAGA movement could then turn against him, and there could be a change in power?
So to answer your second question first, I honestly don't think that this will be the undoing of Donald Trump. I think whenever he's presented with evidence of wrongdoing, such as the lewd drawing that he made for the Epstein birthday book, he says it's fake, and he will stick to that story until the day he dies. He is never going to admit that he ever did anything wrong, and his supporters will stick with him. If there's evidence that he actually was engaging in sexual activity with an underage girl, again, he will deny. I mean, and now with AI, that's AI, artificial intelligence, has become his kind of go-to explanation for something that he either can't explain or doesn't want to explain. So the other day there was a reporter for Fox News, which is a more Trump-friendly outlet, and a reporter who Trump actually likes, asked a legitimate question. There was a video made of a plastic bag falling out of the second floor of the White House, and Peter Doocy from Fox showed Trump the video of this bag falling out of a window. And Trump said, oh, AI, fake news, the windows of the White House don't open for security reasons. Well, the windows of the White House do open. It was a legit video. His White House even somebody acknowledged in the White House that it was a real video and that they were doing renovations and throwing out trash out the window. But that was an instructive moment because it showed us that when he can't explain something, he says fake news, the press is out to get me, and it was AI. So now AI will be the all-purpose explanation for everything. And honestly, the Epstein thing, I can't see anything coming out that would cause his hardcore base to abandon him. And then on your first question about the press corps feeling a sense of urgency about defending American democracy, I think that's yes. The First Amendment, which defends the freedom of the press, it's the First Amendment for a reason, because the freedom of the press is essential to any functioning democracy. In fact, the press is the only occupation mentioned in the First Amendment to the Constitution. Does that mean we overtly oppose Donald Trump? Absolutely not. Our job is to cover him. I work for a newspaper that prides itself on being fair and presenting both or all sides of an issue. There are times when Donald Trump is right, when he's, maybe even deserves to be defended. A lot of reporters, I think any good reporter is a political independent, does not belong to a party, obviously doesn't participate in protests. If we go to a protest, we'll just go as an observer. And I know some reporters don't even vote because they don't like the idea of even having to come to that decision on who to vote for. So what we're looking ahead toward now is the midterm elections. So in November of next year, we'll have elections for every single member of the House of Representatives and 1/3 of the Senate. The control in both houses is extremely close. If the Democrats can take over one or both houses, that will have a huge impact toward reining in Trump, but it won't be total. I have a hard time seeing him taking the Senate, which would mean, and the Senate is the chamber that approves judges. And so I think Donald Trump will continue to add to his dominance of the American judiciary, particularly if one of the liberal members of the Supreme Court were to die or resign for some reason. that would give Trump an even bigger stake in the court. So in some ways, the Senate is more important than the House, but controlling the House would at least give the Democrats some toehold and power, because they, at the moment, they really don't have much. There's really not much Democrats can do to oppose Trump on policy. And so I think the press is maintaining our independence is more important than ever. If the president decrees that the Gulf of Mexico is now to be called the Gulf of America, do we in the press corps just salute and say, yes, sir, whatever you say? Absolutely not. The Associated Press refused to change its style guidance on what to call the Gulf of Mexico, and paid for that decision by being kicked out of the pool for a fairly extended period. But I think that that was the right decision for them to stick to their principles and not allow viewpoint discrimination. And that's in court, by the way, that whole muzzling of the Associated Press in terms of its access to the president. So I think we're going to keep doing our job in a professional manner, and cover the news without, as a news reporter, not a columnist, call it as we see it, and if Donald Trump is right, say so.
Okay, thanks a lot. Any more important? Yes, okay, last question here.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about the increasingly disrespectful behavior of Trump towards the press and the further humiliation. I would like to know, do you detect already any effects that this has on the public stance and the public opinion on journalism in the United States, and what this means for the future of journalism in the United States, but also Western countries like Austria or Germany, for example?
So the overall situation in the United States is very polarized. People are either here or here, although there is a sort of chunk in the middle that I think finds it all so disruptive on a daily basis, all the fighting, not just between the press and the White House, but just in general, the political fighting that some people have tuned out. But opinion polls have shown that American trust in the media is very low, that most people are busy with their lives and are not reading or watching the news extensively. They're not, glued to their phones and glued to social media. And I think a lot of people just don't know what to think and are questioning the motives of the media. If you are a traditional Republican and voted for Donald Trump, not because you love him, but because he's better than the Democrats. He's the Republican Party representative, and better than Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or any of the other Democrats who were running. You're inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt, and therefore, if you've got this conflict with the media, that will make views of the media diminish. I would say the mainstream media, say the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal news coverage, the major TV networks, I would say, do lean a little liberal. So I think there is some reason to think that the media isn't completely unbiased. And I have many wonderful friends in the press corps, and everybody's doing their best to keep it straight and neutral, but it's very hard when you're writing. You want to write in a lively way, but the minute you start using adjectives and describing what's happening, it's almost impossible. If you do think Donald Trump is a little too much and might, has some authoritarian tendencies, I think it's pretty easy sometimes to read a news article and see what the reporter actually thinks. And so it is a very tough time to be in journalism, and I think public trust is easy to lose and difficult to win back. So I think even after Trump is out of office, it will take a lot of hard work to win that back.
And in the Anglo-Saxon tradition of the media, there is this separation between reporting and commenting in columns, something that's not, doesn't exist in continental Europe. In the UK, yes, but you have in France or Italy or Austria, you have always articles. they mix judgments
Yes.
and information at the same time. This, of course, is easier in the US to say, I'm just reporting,
Right.
and I leave it to the columnist to say that this is a horrible person.
Right, but to your point, I completely agree. I enjoy reading media from other countries, other Western countries. The British press is very opinionated. I mean, I have friends who are news reporters from the UK, say The Guardian in Washington, and they ask good, legitimate, straight questions at press conferences, and then I read the story, and it's a column. But this sort of, excuse me, the middle ground is a news analysis, where you're not just saying what happened, but you're sort of getting into the context and the why and the background. And then there, it's very hard not to have maybe even a slight bias. So I mean, we try hard, but I think for those of us, I've been a White House reporter since 2002, so I've covered several presidents pretty up close. And this and the second term of Trump is even so different from the first that I had no idea. I know reporters who decided to retire when Trump was reelected instead of having to go through another round of Donald Trump. I think they could see what was coming and decided, I'm done, I can't do this anymore.
Well, we are glad you didn't take that decision, and many other colleagues didn't take that decision, because this is a lifeline for news and democracy in the world, to get an access to what's happening in Washington. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you
Linda,
for having me.
Yes. Thanks for your interest, and let's go on to work.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you
Take
very
care.
much.